All right, so I thought that because so many of you are in grades that are above early literacy grades, that it would be really important for us to talk about academic language and literacy skills. So I'm going to give you an overview during this video, and then I'm actually going to talk you through some of the aspects in more depth in another video. So I have it on presenter view, so hopefully you'll be able to see just these slides as I talk through them. And thanks again for bearing with me. So in this PowerPoint, I'm just going to talk about and give you an overview of academic language and literacy, define what academic language is, and describe some of the dimensions of academic language. So why is academic language and literacy important? Well, some researchers, have found that despite key federal, state, and local initiatives to really close the achievement gap, that most of, or I should say, what's been known as and identified as the achievement gap, most groups of students who are underserved continue to be the most underachieving. And some researchers, like Zakarian and other educators, believe that the achievement gap is really a language gap and that academic language, if we have a focus on that in schools, that it would really help to reach that academic achievement gap. Academic language is also one of the most important factors in student academic success. So when we think about defining academic language, there are some researchers who talk about it in various different ways. So depending upon who you read, you'll see various definitions. But one definition is that academic language is the set of words, grammar, and organizational strategies used to describe complex ideas, higher order thinking processes, and abstract concepts. Shirley Bryce Heath, in the foreword to Fisher, Frey, and Rothenberg's book, she talks about true academic language, that it lies in the details of vocabulary, syntax, and genres that characterize deliberative, democratic participation across roles and responsibilities. So here you see two very different definitions of academic language. But really, when I think about academic language, this eighth grader summed it up really well. School is where you go to learn a secret language, but they don't tell you that it's there. You have to figure it out on your own. It's like an initiation to a secret club. And we don't want any child to feel this way. How smart of Maya to really notice and name the secret language, right? So academic language is typically used in schools and professional settings. Most often, as Maya says, it's not directly taught to students, leaving students like Maya to figure out the rules on their own. Some students come to school with academic language already in place. In other words, the language of school matches or is a close match to the language of their home and community. Other students are learning the language of school alongside the content being taught. For some students, they are able to pick up these nuances on their own, but for many students, academic language continues to be a struggle. So when we think about academic language, there are these three language dimensions. The first dimension, or level, if we think about it that way, is vocabulary. Vocabulary is most often recognized and therefore the most often taught in classrooms and schools. The second dimension is syntax, or the sentence level, and this is the dimension where we put words and phrases together to create sentences. The third level is discourse, or the message dimension. This is the dimension that looks at the overall structure of a message. It's how a person or a text organizes their message through sentences, paragraphs, and visuals to convey their meaning. So if we look at vocabulary, that's really at the word level. And vocabulary instruction is highly correlated with increased comprehension and overall academic success. However, because it is easily taught and tested, as I said before, it is often the focus of many teachers working to improve academic language and literacy. We know that it's vital, but it should be taught alongside the other two dimensions of academic language. At the vocabulary level, we're focused on general academic terms like analyze, argue, summarize, and more specific content vocabulary. Like in mathematics, we could think of equation, variable, balance. So if we looked at Algebra 1, here are some content-specific vocabulary words that we would need to explicitly teach students. If we look at syntax, or that second dimension, right? Syntax, or the sentence level. Syntax is how you put words and phrases together to create sentences. Academic texts contain a lot more complex and compound sentences, which may contain multiple ideas. Academic texts are complex in the way that they're written, and the messages may be implied. Long sentences often have multiple clauses, which represent ideas, relationships, etc., and demand that the reader pays attention to language forms, features. Each content area also has its own syntax and grammar and metalinguistic knowledge that we must apprentice the students into. Like all of the aspects of academic language and literacy, we must teach syntax in the context of real reading and writing, not with isolated tasks. So, for example, this sentence right here, just take a moment and read it. So if you notice the syntax of this sentence, it's written in the passive voice. There's a long list of abstract subjects. There's an abstract verb and an abstract object, all in one sentence. So that third level is discourse, or the message level. So at the discourse level, we're looking at the overall message of the text and how it's constructed. In this dimension, we have to teach students how members of the discipline talk, write, and participate in knowledge construction. Like the other dimensions of academic language, discourse is discipline specific. There are distinctive features and ways of structuring language and text specific to each context area. So we want to help students to analyze what's the message organization in the text structure, what's the voice of the author or the register, what are the density of the words, sentences, and ideas, how is it the clarity and coherence of the piece, what's the purpose, the function, and who's the audience. So in many classrooms you see things like this. Like in nonfiction, we teach students about the structure of the text, right, through text features. So that discourse, right, we look at the text features. Why was this nonfiction piece created? What are the different text features that help us negotiate and navigate through the text? And then helping students to talk about books. So when we expect partnerships to talk, modeling and then having a anchor chart like this will really help students explicitly, and it's us explicitly teaching the students our expectations. And when we think about it, in the end, just like Heath had said, academic language is not just academic, it's life-giving when it extends through the length, width, and depth of all that we can learn. Such language allows us to question, deliberate, negotiate, ponder, and imagine. Fluency and ease in this kind of talk help us to find our way in the world and humanity to make the world a better place. So I'm going to do separate videos on each one of the levels for you.